back when I myself covered the Pitt Panthers and the Steelers for the Johnstown Tribune, on the beat that I really enjoyed my time with was Jerry DiPaola, who's a veteran sports writer up in Pittsburgh for the Pittsburgh Tribune Review, which is tribweb.com. And whether it was hearing a story about meeting covering the Steelers was his beat then, and now it's the Pitt Panthers, I really grew to admire Jerry DiPaola. And also, I think I've forgotten about the I don't know if you have, but the radio work that we used to do together, where you would host a show and I would report from various high school games and things of that nature.
I remember that. That's going back almost 20 years now.
And yes, I was looking at that and just trying to make any money that I could at the time, but it was also got some recognition, I think, both Virginians in the Virginia Polytech Institute. I still don't understand why they de-emphasize gobblers, but then have the turkey call at Lane Stadium during the game. I don't quite get that, but nevertheless, they'll be playing basically the winner of this game will have their own path and their own broadcast this on Facebook. We got some video. I know that you have, the Tree of Life shooting, and that really shook me. That was my own old neighborhood. I knew a lot of people. Arkansas sportscaster Phil Elson, for instance, was bar mitzvahed at Tree of Life. A former sports talk show host that I had on the air, Howard Elson, that's his synagogue. And so it really shook me. And I want to tell you that after that occurred, I wrote Pitt, and I suggested as a way to remember the victims of the Tree of Life massacre. He said what they've done is that they've made a T-shirt based on that design, and I have worn this, and it's been given away at the vigils, and I'm holding it up right now. Yeah, you've seen this. You absolutely. I'm holding that shirt up right now. Protected us with the idea of the Star of David dotting the script Pitt, and here it is, Pitt Stronger Than Hate with the Star of David on top of the script Pitt. So that's, like I said, I mean, it really before, and I mean, now you got this knucklehead out in Thousand Oaks doing the same thing. When will this ever stop? I mean, that's the scary thing, but like I said, that when I was a little boy, that was sort of my neighborhood. My mother, you probably didn't know this, was considering converting to Judaism. And when we moved to Point Breeze, they all said, hey, you know what? You'll really like this neighborhood. There's a synagogue down the street. It's called the Tree of Life. That was, you can see where, that was. Anyway, let's talk about happier. And then to an awful North Carolina team. How in the world are they now in a position where they can win the ACC, Jerry DiPaola?
They can win the ACC Coastal if they beat Virginia Tech or BPI, and they beat Wake Forest next week. That Wake Forest game looks a little more difficult now than the championship game on December 1st. But the defense has gotten much better. A lot of seniors at linebacker, a lot of seniors at defensive line. Dwayne Hendricks, their transfer from Tennessee, they had a breakout game against Virginia last Friday night. We're in 2.5 sacks. The secondary has been okay all season. Hasn't given up a lot of the big plays. Syracuse is a ranked team, but they beat Syracuse.
They're 7-2 as Syracuse.
Like you said, that game was close at halftime, but when they started having a special teams problem, Penn State ran away with it. Penn State's the better team, obviously. Someone asked me yesterday if Pitt and Penn State would play again now, who would win. I still think Penn State would win. Might be a better game. But Penn State just has better athletes, and so does Notre Dame. But Pitt stayed with them. It was, Notre Dame has a good chance to be in the college football playoff at the end of the season. And Pitt was winning that game until the last 5 minutes with Central Florida. When they play a team with the quarterback sort of sits in the pocket, like Ian Book does for Notre Dame, they have an opportunity to win. And they can run the ball, and they can play good run defense, which they expect to do against Virginia Tech, against BPI. They have a chance to win this game. I think they will win. But with fans, Pitt fans are very fatalistic. Marky,
yes.
Probably know. They're just
tend to think that Tennessee fans are over Eric Kuma, the great not defensive backs, listen to me, wide receivers for in this game. You mentioned the pass rush led by the former Tennessee Vol, Dwayne Hendricks, but can there be enough coverage for the Pitt Panthers? Because I know historically that's been a big problem for Pitt, is their pass coverage.
Yeah, it has. Especially when they played Oklahoma State 2 years in a row. But recruiting Jason Pinoff made a big play in that Virginia game, late in the game, to knock a pass away that could have been trouble if it was completed. DeMar Hamlin has played very well this season. They're getting good play from Philippi Motley, senior cornerback, who hasn't made a lot of mistakes this year like you've seen in the past, from good secondary guys. And then the strong safety, Dennis Briggs, probably going to be a CEO of his own company someday. He's a very mature guy, a married man, and helps in Pitt's run defense considerably. So they're playing well in that secondary. Much better they played the pass. And I think what part of the reason is they're bigger guys. They're bigger, more athletic guys. You do miss Devontae Maddox, the quarterback from the last several seasons, who's now with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
You do miss Jordan Whitehead, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is kind of ironic. You lose two players in the NFL, and your secondary automatically all of a sudden gets better. I think that's up and keep Pitt steady with all the other teams in the ACC.
Well, Justin Fuente has a reputation as one of the up-and-coming coaches in college football. He left off from Frank Beamer. Now, Pat Narduzzi, he's been, Pro 10, you'll get more criticism, I think. That's fair to say. But one of the things, and you wrote about this, that I was impressed by was his decision deep in his own territory in the first half on last Friday's game against Virginia, which put Pitt short. And he thinks like that high school coach in Arkansas. Thinking, if I punt the ball, Virginia's liable to just, be a few yards out of field goal range anyway. Why don't I just go for it here? It's not, it's the second quarter. There's still time to go for it. Has riverboat gambler coaches that you never know what he's going to call next?
Well, yeah, in a way he has, Mark. He's tried that fake punt a couple of different punter. He had a fake punt that worked against Syracuse. He had a fake punt that worked against Virginia Tech last year down in Blacksburg. It was for a touchdown, actually. But he also had some mistakes. He tried it against Notre Dame, and it didn't work. That was a funny situation where he brought in Jeff George Jr., the backup quarterback. Yeah. Who's the son of the former NFL quarterback, Jeff George. Brought him in, put him in a different number uniform to make him look like the punter, Chris Padulo. Put him in a similar number, 96. Notre Dame wasn't fooled by it at all. And George, 4th and 1 from the 10-yard line. It sounds like it was in second quarter. It sounds like a rip, and it was. If they don't make it, it's quarter. And you got Virginia on the 10-yard line with plenty of time for to score a touchdown. But it worked. One quarterback sneak. Kenny Pickett gained 2 yards about the first down. Now Pitt had to punt after that. They had 4 more plays, and they had to punt after that. But they used enough time on the clock that when Virginia got the ball back, they had to kick a field goal on first down rather than go for a touchdown, so they didn't have time. So you didn't get that fake. They went for a clock, and it saved Virginia. They saved points on the
time right there. I was thinking also, about a field position angle. It's a game of field position, even more than blocking and tackle.
It was poor even after he made the first down. He was only on the 12-yard line.
Yeah.
But he was able to run some clock, and then Virginia ran out of time. And when they got the ball, when they get the ball back, they get the first half. All they do was kick a field goal.
Well, there you go. That coach down in Arkansas, turning a lot of heads there.
I read about that guy. Yeah.
Hey, let me. Now, one of the intriguing things, when I think of Virginia Tech, I think this is ancient history now, but for the fans, turning points on why John Majors was not able to turn around Pitt when he came back there after his 16-year stint at Tennessee was there was a time in 1995 where Pitt was playing Virginia Tech, and both teams came in very similar records, and the game was won on a Virginia Tech blocked punt, and they went on to win 26-16. Pitt lost the rest of their games. They were lousy after that. Virginia Tech went on to become a national power. Now, it's hard to say that one play possibly in this football game, yet Pitt's kicker has a 55-yarder. Alex Kessman is his name. Kessman, excuse me. Brian Johnson is the kicker for Virginia Tech, also the lead singer for AC/DC. But in this case, he's the kicker for Virginia Tech, and his long is a 45-yarder. It seems like the special teams advantage that worked so well for so long for Virginia Tech just isn't there anymore. Would you agree with that? You've spoken a little bit about the special teams, but Maurice French is a real good in this game. The unthinkable advantage.
Well, you might be able to say that, but you wouldn't say that after watching Penn State game.
Mm-hmm.
When Kirk Christodoulou, the punter, dropped a punt snap, and that led to a Penn State touchdown. When Christodoulou was actually the holder in that game because the regular holder, Jake Scarton, was hurt. He ball with a snap, and they couldn't get a field goal. And then he had Narduzzi, he's not going for a field goal because he was afraid he couldn't get a clean hold. So they've had their special teams problems this year, for sure. I believe this year, in the first game in the both were at Heinz Field, I believe. I hope I'm not, my memory's correct. But they might have an edge. But Alex Kessman has kicked field goals. He has the longest field goal on record in Heinz Field. That's college or pro. Which is pretty hard. It's one of the hardest stadiums in the NFL to kick a field goal. And he's kicked the multiple 50-yard plus field goals in Heinz Field. Heinz Field was different than it was back in the day, Marky. Back in the day, when I was covering them, Chris Brown was the kicker. Chris Brown was always concerned about the swirling winds because that one wind from the river. They've sort of built that up since then. More like a bowl than it ever was. So I think it's a little easier to kick than it was, maybe 20 years ago when it was first built. Because it was very consistent, and he hit the big one against Virginia, the 55-yarder, I believe, to give him a 10-point lead right in that game. And if he misses that field goal, he gives Virginia good field position. That game, would have been on the line again. So, Narduzzi gambled twice in that game, and it turned out great both times for him.
But you like Pitt to win this game. Now, obviously, you're the Panthers reporter, but I also know that doesn't have an influence in your selection. But you like Pitt, despite the fact maybe the Hokies, the secondary question mark, to win this game and be only one victory away from a ACC Coastal Championship is?
Well, I think they're on a roll. They played 3 good games in a row. They almost beat Notre Dame, and then they beat Duke and Virginia. The running game is doing well. Darren Hall has been playing well. The offensive line, it's a bunch of guys in the offensive line that aren't great players, but they mesh together very, very well. At least as far as the run game goes. Pass protection has been pretty bad most of the season. That could become a problem. I just think it has an opportunity to win this game because I think that, they have a lot of good leadership on that team. When they were 3-4, things were going poorly. When they got beat by North Carolina, and nobody gave them much of a chance to do anything. The seniors helped keep this team together. And Pat Narduzzi has mentioned it a few times. He's not saying it's the best senior class he's ever had, but it's a good senior class. It's been good for the younger guys, bringing them along and making sure nobody hangs their head. And that's the one thing that you can say about this team through thick and thin all season. They don't get upset when they lose. They don't go crazy when they win. They talk every week, and that sounds like a cliche. It sounds like nothing, but it's you stack up enough 1-0, eventually you're going to be a championship team.
What about Randy Sanders at ETSU saying, focus on the next play? I actually think there's some worth on that. You fumble the ball away. Don't worry. Focus, get 10 yards on the next play. That's been his mantra for ETSU, and they now have the 3rd best season that they've ever had. For only 2 other teams has won 8 games this year for ETSU. So I'll give you that there. Excuse me. Listen to me. The Tribune Review, or I couldn't. Yeah. I do want to ask you this. I realize that Tennessee has been down, but in a couple of years, Tennessee is going to play Pitt in a home-and-home. I think it's 2020 and 2021. Chance Kenny Pickett would be the starting quarterback, certainly in that game for the Pitt Panthers. And while, like I said, Tennessee seems to be spinning their wheels a little bit right now. Do you think that in a couple of years that could be a very competitive game? Do you think that that could be two programs of equal caliber?
I think so. I'm assuming he's not going to go to the NFL after his junior year. So yeah, by 2020, Pickett should be playing better football than he's playing now. He hasn't had a great season, like I said. He does throw a lot of interceptions, but he takes a few sacks. He's inaccurate at times. He's under a lot of pressure from the pass rush at a lot of times. So a lot of the problems. Now, Kenny Pickett isn't playing high level football.
All right. He's Jerry DiPaola of the Tribune Review, or tribweb.com. Hey, I can say it, honestly. All this. I'll have some final thoughts on our show before I head down to Alcoa to give you Unicoi County at Alcoa in the second round of the state football playoffs. Tri-City Sports Now coming back after this. Stick with me here real fast. I want to say